Hello everybody, welcome back to Steven's Fight Show. And in this video we have a juicy one. We have a big fight that's happening either tomorrow or today. By the time of this recording, it should be out on the day of the fight or a day before. Pretty much on Saturday we have one of the biggest trilogy fights of all time between Canelo Alvarez versus Triple G. And honestly, I don't really have to do too much introduction for this video. I mean, the first two fights between the two of them already tell the story, so I don't think I need to say much. And I mean, you guys already know who these two fighters are. Canelo Alvarez, he's the pound for pound champ. He used to be pound for pound number one, but because of a certain Russian, he is no longer the pound for pound number one. Gennadiy Golovkin, who is the best middleweight in the world right now, will be taking on Canelo Alvarez for the undisputed super middleweight titles. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so let's talk about Canelo and Triple G's rivalry as a whole, and the trash talk, and the build-up, and the press conference, etc. Like I said again, this is one of the biggest trilogies to one of the biggest rivals of all time. And the rivalry between Canelo Alvarez and Triple G is something else, because they used to be training partners. They used to work with each other. They used to go at it in the gym. And Triple G, he's one of the only few people to give Canelo a run for his money in both of their fights. If you look at the list of opponents that Canelo has faced, not a lot of them have performed the way that Triple G has performed against Canelo. Obviously, with the exception of Floyd Mayweather and Dmitry Bivol. And the first two fights were close and controversial, with the first one being scored as a draw and the second one favoring Canelo. And fans believe the decision for both fights were wrong and that Triple G should have won those fights. And the decision of those fights being controversial is a part of the reason why it makes this rivalry so competitive. And to add on to that, at the time, both guys were extremely evenly matched. They were both number one and number two in their weight division, and both of their insanely close fights were a testament to that. Especially seeing where Canelo has gone and how much better he got since his second meeting against Triple G, it was a testament to how great Triple G performed against Canelo. However, even though the fights in the past were considered competitive, there was a bit of hatred on both sides, but it was squashed after the second fight. And now this third one has become personal for one man, and it's Canelo. Canelo has pretty much stated that he believes Triple G is a fake and how he hides behind closed doors to talk about Canelo, but he won't say it to his face. And for the most part, it is true. From certain interviews, you can see Triple G take little jabs at Canelo. But what I think Canelo is really bothered by is when Triple G mentions about the failed drug test from Canelo Alvarez. In the past, Canelo has failed two different drug tests right before his rematch against Triple G, and since then, Triple G has not let Canelo forget about that moment. He's claimed many times that he believes Canelo is a cheater and that Canelo is doping, and he said that he's even seen injection marks on Canelo in their first fight, and this obviously didn't sit well with Canelo. And from Triple G's point of view, I personally don't think that it's wrong for him to bring it up because of the reasoning that Canelo has put out since him failing the drug test. And his reasoning is that he was eating meat in Mexico and that the meat in Mexico was contaminated. And that could be fair due to the fact that there is evidence out there that meat in Mexico could be contaminated. But at the same time, it really doesn't help your case when your training partner, Oscar Valdez, tested positive for a banned substance, and his reasoning was that he was drinking a weight loss herb tea. And it's interesting because I've always wondered, where are they selling these meat in teas that magically have banned substances infused into them? And I understand that the past is the past and all of this did happen in 2018, but still, cheating is very serious in this game. It's not the same as cheating in any other sport. If you cheat in combat sports, it's a way bigger deal than you cheating in basketball or football or American football. For a guy that is as great as Canelo, cheating can never ever be tolerated. But going back to their rivalry, in this fight, it looks like Canelo is a bit more emotional since this fight is considered personal for him. From watching the press conferences, you can tell that Canelo is the one that is a lot more aggravated. He's the one that wants to take Triple G's head off, whereas Triple G is the one that is very calm. He's looking at it as if it was just another fight, and he stated that, hey, if Canelo has a problem with me, it's not my fault, it's his problem. And yes, Canelo is a bit more emotionally angry in this fight, but I don't think it would affect him the way that people think it will. If you look at the Caleb Plant fight and how Canelo was reacting in the press conference, Canelo was a bit angry and frustrated with Caleb Plant. I mean, we rarely see Canelo flip out the way that he flipped out against Caleb Plant during the face-off. My man's pushed him and gave him a slap and everything, but yet it didn't really hinder or affect his performance. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's at stake and the styles between the two of them. The pressure to win this fight is on Canelo, in my opinion, for several reasons. One being is that people think he already lost against Triple G. Whenever you bring up Triple G and Canelo, people are always like,
oh, Triple G's up 2-0 against Canelo, and Triple G was robbed. Canelo already lost to Triple G, like blah 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 blah.
In order for him to block off and delete those comments and conversations, he has to beat Triple G, and he has to beat him convincingly. The second reason being that Canelo is in his prime with all of the advantages. Canelo has always talked about the fact that he lost to Mayweather because he was young and inexperienced. But now that he's in his prime and he's at his very best, he should beat a Triple G that is 40 years old. And not only that, coming off of a loss, Canelo has to make a statement that he is still that guy at the top of the pound for pound list. After Canelo lost to Dmitry Bivol in a weight division that he's only fought once in, people were literally trying to push Canelo out of the top 3 and even out of the top 5. I remember after the loss, I went on Twitter and saw so many people, and when I say so many people, so many haters, so many boxing fans stating their case on why Canelo isn't pound for pound number 1 anymore and trying their hardest to push Canelo out of the conversation. If he loses to Triple G, not only will he get criticized heavily for it, but the whole boxing world will push him out of the pound for pound list completely. They're going to try to push him down towards the bottom of the list. They're going to start throwing names and trying to put other people above Canelo. And to add on to all of that, Canelo also looks for a rematch against Bivol if he gets through Triple G, and Bivol's team will not take the rematch if Canelo loses. And to me, Canelo not being pound for pound number 1 is fair. But him not being pound for pound number 3 or at least pound for pound number 5 is absolutely ridiculous. This man has continued to raise the level of opposition every single time he steps in the ring. He took a risky attempt to make history and he just came up short. That was that. How many boxers in the game are willing to do what Canelo did? The answer is not a lot. And when we're talking about styles, both Canelo and Triple G have similar styles in terms of the shots that they throw. And it was one of the reasons why it made the first 2 fights so good. They both can work really well in the pocket and set up shots nicely with hooks and uppercuts to the head and body. And in my opinion, at this stage in his career, Canelo is the better counterpuncher, and he's going to land the more damaging shots in this fight. And it was no secret that Canelo was the stronger fighter in their previous fights, and it looks like he hasn't slowed down or gotten any weaker. With the way that he's been finishing his last few opponents besides Dmitry Bivol, at 168, it looks like he hasn't lost a beat at all. And Triple G, he has a great jab. He uses it very well to gauge distance and set up shots and throw combinations moving forward. And in my opinion, the difference between Triple G and Canelo's jab in the first 2 fights was that Canelo would throw a big powerful jab, whereas Triple G would use it to land 2, 3 and set up a hook behind it, or an uppercut, or a body shot. In terms of defense, Canelo has the so-called slicker defense, and what I mean by that is he's the one that is sitting there slipping shots, rolling under shots, and catching punches off the shoulder, turning with shots. But Triple G, he is a lot more conventional, where he does a good job of blocking punches and countering with a couple of his own. And he was terrific when it came to blocking body punches from Canelo. He also does a good job of cutting off the ring and positioning his feet where he can trap you up against the ropes and land his punches. And both of these guys, they have similar strengths. They both got good hooks, uppercuts, body shots, straight punches. Their styles match up very well with each other. So let's get on to the official prediction. My prediction is that Canelo will get it done by stoppage in round 10, but I have a feeling that it could go to a decision. So let me explain a bit more in depth. What Canelo has achieved since fighting Triple G for the second time has been incredible. He's moved up to super middleweight after being 3 or 4 belt champion at middleweight, I forget. But he's beaten all the top guys at 168, such as Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Yildirim, and Caleb Plant. And not only did he beat those guys, but he either finished or dominated them. Triple G, since the second fight, has opted to stay at middleweight, but his performance haven't been impressive to give him a chance to beat Canelo at this stage. His level of opposition isn't on the same level as Canelo, and I think it's going to affect Triple G in a way because he hasn't seen anybody as dangerous as Canelo. I think the first few rounds, Triple G will start fast and be on the front foot using the jab and trying to back Canelo up. And this would be considered a bold take as it didn't really have any success in the first fight, but I think Canelo would probably start like how he did in the first fight in those early rounds, how he was just moving on his back foot around the ring. But when it gets towards those middle rounds, I think the fight will stay at the center of the ring till the final bell if it does get there. And like I said again, Canelo has all the advantages. He has the speed advantage, the power advantage, he has more experience, he has the size, and to even add on to it, he's fighting with a chip on his shoulder. The last time we saw Canelo respond to a loss was from Mayweather, and look what he was able to do after coming off of that loss, so who knows what he can do in this fight. And Triple G, I think he has to use his boxing IQ, his patience, his activity, and his combination punching to win this fight. My only worry for Canelo is that he might fall in love with his defense and give Triple G too many opportunities to come forward like the first fight. If you watch the first fight, Canelo, he was too comfortable with making Triple G miss. And you even saw it a bit when he fought Dmitry Bivol as well, where he was just on the ropes, rolling, slipping shots, which does look nice. But ultimately, when 1 or 2 is getting through and you're not countering back with a couple shots of your own, then in the eyes of the judges, you are losing the fight. I need Canelo to do a lot more counter work and not be too slick in this fight where he gives Triple G too much confidence to come forward. Canelo also has to pace himself and pick his shots wisely, because in the first fight and even in the second fight, even though he finished the first fight strong, towards the end of the fight, you could see him slow down, like how he did against Bivol, where his hands were dropping and the snap in his punches were not the same. But in this fight, he has to make sure that he sets up punches, and not every single punch has to be a powerful punch. When he's throwing a jab, it doesn't need to be a hard jab. He just needs to touch with his jab to find his range to throw an accurate, hard shot. And as for Triple G, I mean, father time talks are there with his age, and we don't know how Triple G will perform at 168. He's not a big middleweight, and in fact, it's his ideal fight weight, so it's interesting to see how he's going to move and how his gas tank is going to hold up and how his power is going to translate over to super middleweight. The gas tank will be important because that's what won him those later rounds in the last 2 fights. So my boxing brain tells me that Canelo will win by TKO in round 10. I think if he starts slow and he conserves his energy and he works in those middle rounds and towards those later championship rounds where he's able to increase the activity, increase the pacing, then I think he could get Triple G out of there in round 10. The shots that Canelo has been landing and putting out at 168, we don't know if Triple G can take those same punches at this stage in his career. But my heart says that it might go to a decision, because at this age, Triple G is no longer in his prime, but at 40 years old, he still looks fantastic. And that is it, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to what I have to say, and let me know, who do you guys have winning in the trilogy, Canelo or Triple G? Drop a comment and let me know in the comment section down below. Now, if you guys enjoy content that is related to combat sports, please drop a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That would be greatly appreciated. And other than that, it's been Steven signing out. Peace.